Okay, well, hi, folks. We're going to talk about what else? Real estate. And man, what's happening in real estate? What's not happening in real estate? These are crazy, crazy times right now. And it is always important to work with somebody that you trust and somebody who's experienced and knowledgeable, but even more so in a market like this. And when I say a market like this, what do I mean? Well, and the market we're having here in Spokane, Washington is probably not that different from markets that we are experiencing all over the country. Now, of course, price points will be different, no doubt, but the dynamics are not that different. And what we're experiencing, folks, and what we have been experiencing really is a seller's market. Can we agree that the real estate market changes? This is the real estate market. So wherever we are, when you need to buy or sell, that's the dynamics. We have a certain set of dynamics that are unique to the market you're in. And right now, as I said, it's a seller's market. And I'm going to just briefly tell you, how do I know that? What indicators do we look at? And then we'll move on and talk about what we need to know. And it's all about inventory and months of inventory. And currently here in Spokane, we're running about 2 months of inventory. I heard this morning nationally we're at about 4 months inventory. What does 2 months inventory mean? 2 months inventory means however many homes are selling each month, and assuming we don't add any more units onto the market, how long would it take us at our current rate of sales to exhaust the market? So to make the numbers easy, let's say there's 1,000 homes on the market and we're selling 500 homes a month. Our inventory is 2 months. In 2 months, 1,000 units will be gone. So, okay, the inventory is 2 months. Well, what does that mean? Well, what we know is that anything under 6 months inventory indicates a seller's market. So we have higher demand and less supply. 6 months would be considered a neutral market. Anything over 6 months would be considered a buyer's market, meaning we have a lot of buyers, not as much supply. And so a buyer, hey, if you don't work with me, seller, no problem. There's 5 other that will work with me. But we're not in that market. We were years ago, but we're not now. So where I am finding this being most problematic is when we are working with clients who, in their last experience, or the person they're listening to, like a parent, their last experience was in the opposite type of market, because they're giving you advice and telling you what to do, but it's the wrong market for that. Okay, so we're about 2 months inventory, 4 months inventory around the country. Regardless of whether it's 2 or 4, we are in a seller's market. So we need to know what that means. So I'm going to talk about first, if you're a buyer, how do you buy in this market? And then after our break, if you're a seller, how do you sell in this market? So buyers, we have our buyer hat on. Understand you're emotional. Understand that people want to look good and be right. And so they tend to make these emotional decisions that are not conducive to them achieving their goals. But it's fueled by emotions. And you need to understand that, identify it. And so let's take buyers that I recently was involved with, helping somebody else get through. These buyers wanted to lowball a seller. So a house just came on the market, clean house, and these were some of the first folks to look at it, and they wanted to lowball. Why would you want to lowball? You've been in the market, you're looking at homes, you're trying to find a place to settle down with you and your family, or you, doesn't matter, and you finally find the home and you're going to lowball. Again, what market are we in? We're in a seller's market. So these buyers felt like they should make a lowball offer. Well, what happens is when you make a lowball offer, Some sellers won't even respond to you because they're so offended because they too are emotional. So emotions are playing a big part. So buyers, if you find a property that you like and you're working with somebody who can do a market analysis on it and has identified that it's priced appropriately, make a fair offer. Don't beat up these sellers. This is not the market to beat sellers up with. It'll cost you the house. The other thing that I'm seeing is that buyers, they're looking. They find something. Let's wait a day. I'm going to wait until tomorrow. Now, they'll call it anything they want to call it, but it's fear, which is an emotion. It's fear. They're scared to pull the trigger. So buyers, think about this. If you want to wait a day, and we know we're in a seller's market, what about the buyer that saw the house yesterday and said the same thing? They're going to wait a day. So how would you feel waiting a day? You wake up tomorrow and that house is no longer available because you waited a day. That's a real deal. That's happening all over the place. So that hesitation to pull the trigger can cost you the house. Maybe it's okay with you. Maybe it's not. But you need to understand that. Multiple offers. We're seeing a lot of multiple offers. So we'll see this on, especially like on a Friday or Saturday where you submit the offer. Well, the listing agent, they want to wait a day or two, taking direction from their seller, because we could get 3 or 4 additional offers come Sunday night. So now we're dealing with multiple offers. Is your agent experienced in multiple offers? Do they know how to work with multiple offers? Well, a lot of agents, they'll take what's called an escalation clause, which says something like, I offer you $280,000 for this house, or I will pay $500 over the highest offer, not to exceed $300,000. Seems legitimate, right? Well, be careful, because a seasoned listing agent and seller can use that against you, and they could counter you and say, oh, you're willing to pay $300,000? We're going to counter offer you, and we're going to ask for $300,000. Why? We already know you're willing to pay it. So be very cautious of that. But again, that just points to working with somebody who's very experienced and seasoned as a real estate professional who understands these dynamics. Multiple offers is happening all over the place. Where we would see 5 offers, there's major metropolitan areas. The closest one here is Seattle. They're seeing 15 to 20 offers on a house. How'd you like to be a buyer in that market? So multiple offers. A recent experience was where one of our, let's just say a listing agent received an offer, and listing agent seller countered that offer, and buyer countered that counter, and then shortly after that they received another offer, a better offer, from a second buyer. Well, first buyer said, hey, forget our counter, we want to accept what you countered us with, which you can't do, because the moment you counter somebody, you've also rejected their offer. It is no longer on the table. But that's another talk show. That's when I bring the attorney in. Anyhow, listing agent moved forward with the second buyer. I learned later that first buyer, they lost that house over $700. Tell me that wasn't an emotionally driven counter instead of accepting the home with a $700 price difference. Which reminds me to say something. Are we approved on purchase price or monthly payment? Monthly payment. So before this show, I quickly pulled out my mortgage calculator. And do you know what that $700 at 4% over 30 years, do you know what that added to their payment? $3.34. They lost the house over $3.34 a month. Over a cup of coffee a month. Tell me that wasn't an emotionally driven counter. Knock it off, you guys. You want to buy a house, you want to win, table the emotions, work with somebody who's seasoned and experienced and can counsel you on that, and get the house. Stop playing games. I know we're rolling into our first break. I'm being waved at. So that is how to buy a house in this market. When we come back, sellers, it's your turn. How to sell in this market. Real Estate Radio with Ken Sachs. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. I'm Ken Sachs, host of Real Estate Radio with Ken Sachs. We are talking about the real estate market we're experiencing across the country, not to mention here in Spokane, Washington, and that being a seller's market, and the dynamics associated with being in a seller's market. And the first half of the show, we spoke about how to buy in this market. We had our buyer's hat on. One last thing I want to say before we ditch the buyer hat, and this came up this morning, and I've said this for years. Buyers, when you want to make an offer, you're not listening to us because you're wanting to perhaps lowball or be overly aggressive, and it's not the market to do that. And what I have found, and what I tell other agents, buyers, you have to lose 2 to 3 homes before you listen to us. I found that over the years. I've been doing this 23 years. I have just found that to be some kind of weird phenomenon that you have to lose 2 to 3 homes before you then say, okay, what should I offer on this house? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Let's talk about that. Okay? So there goes a buyer hat. Sellers, your turn. How do we sell in this market? How do we sell when we're in a seller's market? The demand is greater than supply. It's our turn. Okay? So first thing I want to talk about, and this is something we're seeing, at least here in our city, overpricing. We're getting a little too greedy. So let's talk about the dynamics of overpricing. Is it fair to say consumers have more information now than they did 15, 20, 25 years ago? Absolutely. Oftentimes, they have more information and knowledge than some of the professionals they're working with. So when we overprice a home, even if we find a buyer that will overpay for a home, if that buyer is getting a loan, and of course many of them are, that house has to get appraised. An appraiser is going to do what we do. They're going to look at the market, look at comparable properties, and see what they're selling for. So even if you find a buyer that is willing to overpay, you're probably not going to get the home appraised. And then depending on what type of buyer it is, conventional, VA, FHA, you may not even have an opportunity to lower the price to keep that buyer in the boat. That buyer's gone. What's the effect of that? Well, when does an appraisal take place? So we enter into a contract today. Now we're off the market. So we're off the market. We go through the inspection. Then we go through the appraisal. So that could be 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. Well, even longer now with this market. So we're out, let's say 3 weeks. We're off the market for 3 weeks while we wait for the appraiser to say that your house isn't worth what the buyer's willing to pay, which is probably what your real estate professional was telling you. Now we've lost 3 weeks in this market. And depending on where you live, I know here winter is not far off, and we can expect somewhat of a slowdown once the snow starts blowing. What has that now done to you, seller? So be very cautious of that and be very cautious of overpricing, which reminds me, no matter where you are in this country, don't fall for working with somebody who wants to tell you what you want to hear. So I come in and my comparables tell me your home is worth 300, and then you talk to 4 more people and the second guy says 310 and 320 and 325. The last one says 330. I'm going to work with you because you can get more money for me. Can that person? So that person ends up with a sign in your yard, but it's not going to sell. And if you do find a buyer, it's not going to appraise. So don't fall for somebody who's going to just tell you what you want to hear and try to get the listing because they miraculously can control the market over another real estate professional. Okay? Stop listening with your emotions. Multiple offers. I talked about it first half of the show as a buyer. How about as a seller? Multiple offers. So sellers, you go from, let's be greedy, I want all this money, and now we're not getting any offers. Now I'm desperate. Well, now I have multiple offers. I'm greedy again. So, hey, let's create a bidding war. We're going to make a lot of money. Well, be careful because you can go from 3 or 4 buyers submitting offers to where'd they go? Because there's a lot of buyers who say, no, I don't want to be in a bidding war. And so if you create a bidding war just because you can, you could go from 4 to 0 like that. I've seen it happen. I counsel my sellers against that when we're in those situations. So be very careful. Again, that's where it pays off to work with somebody who understands the dynamics, has experience, and can explain these things to you rather than just a yes person or order taker, right? You need education, and you need the information and education to make the best decision for you. So multiple offers, you have a multiple opportunity, you have different ways of handling them. One of them is creating a bidding war. I'm not going to get into all the different ways now. That'll be another show. But understand, if you create a bidding war, you can lose all your buyers. Okay, fair? Condition and price. Don't be in a rush to get your house on the market if you still have things to finish up, to clean up, to repair. Because the best time to sell your house is right when it comes on the market. And that's when it has to be in the best condition. I know in our city, the homes that I'm seeing, for the most part, are very clean. They're very turnkey. That's who you're competing with. So we want to make sure that we have the condition right, the house is clean, very turnkey. I know we're running out of time. Let's talk quickly about pricing strategies. This is another weird phenomenon. I call it grocery store pricing. What do I mean by that? $259,999 instead of $260, or $299,999.99 instead of $300. So do we really think that if we price it 300 instead of 299,99999 and we find a buyer, they would say, well, you know what? It's too much. If it was 299,99999, I would buy it, but it's at 300. No, it's too much. Why are we doing that? Because everybody else does it. Well, ask them, why are you doing it? Think about, how is a home sold? A home is sold first by not being eliminated. What do I mean by that? It has to show up online, because that's where you're looking, buyers. It has to show up online, and then it can't be eliminated, because then what you do is you start eliminating homes, and it's the last one standing. That's how we buy. So I want it to show up in that search. So to show up in that search, I'm going to price it in my scenario at 300,000 instead of 299,99999. Because how do real estate professionals and most people search online? I want it to come up on searches. So if one day I have folks searching from the 250 to 300, it comes up on the search. The next day I have somebody searching 300 to 325, it comes up on the search. If it's at 299,99999, it doesn't come up on my second search. I've missed half my searches. And to sell a home, it has to come up on a search and then not get eliminated. So how do we not get eliminated? Don't post a picture of every darn corner in that house and all the bathrooms. Is it fair to say we know what's in a bathroom? I'm guessing a toilet, a sink, and oftentimes a shower. Unless there's something super spectacular, why? Or I love the one where you see the person taking the picture in the mirror and you see a big flash and like this torso. Stop. Show enough photos to where somebody wants to then go to the home and see the rest. That's how you sell a house. And let's not forget about curb appeal, because somebody can pull up to the house, look at the exterior, and say, let's keep going. So we got to get it to come up on a search, not get eliminated, get them to the house, then get them out of their car and into the house. That's how we do it. So think about that pricing strategy. And if you're challenge the person you're working with, hey, why 299,99999 instead of 300? Okay? How are we doing on time? 1 minute, 2 minutes? Okay. I told myself I wasn't going to bring it up, but I can't help it now. Zillow. Understand this, consumer, whether you're a buyer or a seller. When I explain this, the consumer says, oh, I didn't know that. I know you don't know that. Zillow and Zillow's competitors, watch, I'm going to get a call from Zillow now. Producer Kent, will you take the call when they call? Okay. Their business model is to get traffic to come into their website and capture your contact information and sell it to people in the industry. That's their model. It's not to give you good information. They want to capture your information, your name and phone number, email, and then they go to people like us. I get calls from Zillow and their competitors all the time. They want us to spend hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. And they say, look, we attracted 30,000 people to this zip code. Don't you want some of those buyers? And they want money from us. That is their business model. That's what they do. They're not in existence to educate people. That's why you have to speak to a local professional. When I say professional, I'm not talking about somebody with just a license. I'm talking about somebody who is knowledgeable, competent, proficient, experienced, and can talk about these dynamics in a way that I've talked about them. So understand that. Okay, I know I'm being waved at. We're out of time. So buyers and sellers, you really need to understand whatever market you're in, you need to understand those dynamics. They have specific set of dynamics. You need to work with somebody who understands it and can use it to your benefit so you win. Been my pleasure. Ken Sachs, host of Real Estate Radio. See you next time.